Diane Nygaard coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, and we're going to be talking today about a very creative way to plan an exit strategy, and that would be franchising. So, a lot of people have questions on what is a franchise, why is it a good option, and we have an expert here today. Faizun Kamal is an award winning franchise growth advisor, nationally renowned public speaker, and best selling author. And she is the dynamic CEO leading the Franchise Pros, a strategic franchise growth advisory. Faizun and her team provide services in consulting, development, and growth services, investments in premier market opportunities. So through franchise consulting, you can make bold transition from employee to entrepreneur, and it's also an excellent exit strategy if you're thinking about doing something like that down the road. So Faizun's going to educate us today on all things franchise. What does a good franchise opportunity look like? How does that work, and everything else that you might need to know. And if you don't get it all today, you can certainly contact Faizun afterwards. We'll have all her contact information down on the video. And you're also welcome to reach out to her individually as well, of course. So thank you, Faizun, and welcome today. And I'm so glad we finally were able to connect because she's a very busy woman.
Diane, I am so excited to be here with you. And before we get started, congratulations to you again, my
Oh,
dear.
thank
How
you.
wonderful.
I'm still getting used to the last name. You'll see on here, it's still so Kelly. But, it's a work in progress. And I couldn't change it legally yet because I have this big trip planned to Ireland, and my passport and my flight and everything is in Kelly. So my husband
Tails,
is
tails.
patient. He understands I've changed it on some things, but we're moving ahead. So thank
That's
you. Yeah,
your
that's great. So how did you get into the franchise industry to begin with at all?
Oh my gosh. Um, I started this company 8 years ago
Wow.
after I got laid off from corporate America. So had been with the Fortune 50 for about 8 years at that point, and the company had been having wave after wave of layoffs.
Mm.
And in that particular layoff, my position got eliminated. And so that happened. And frankly, what I had realized for quite some time was I'm just not a fantastic employee. I kind of like to go do my own thing. And that really became an opportunity, Diane, for me to get super intentional about what would be that next in my career chapter, if you will, that allowed me to do work that I found personally meaningful, but that would also be professionally fulfilling at the same time. And I'd always searched for that and had never really found the two to be able to come together in all the things that I had done thus far. And one thing led to another, and I fell headlong into the world of franchising. And here we are, 8 years later.
Wow. So corporate America to being an entrepreneur to jumping into a field I take that you were not working in before.
No, ma'am. I think I only knew how to spell the word franchise. That was about it.
Well, that's pretty brave, and a lot of my entrepreneur friends have great stories like that where they just kind of fell into it. I know I kind of fell into it too, not wanting to be in corporate America with my insurance and deciding I could do a much better job if I wound up on my own, which I did, and we just celebrated 19 years for that company.
My
So
God.
yeah, so 19 years out of that. So, but why franchising specifically? I mean, you left corporate America, but why and how did you get into franchising, and why has it become your passion?
Oh my gosh, Diane. I love that question because I think this is really where you're asking me to share with you what's really my heart. And that is, again, I had done a bunch of different things around the world up until that point where I left corporate. And what I didn't realize then, but that I realized when I started this company, and certainly as I got down the path of franchising, was I had always had this deep, abiding, persistent, annoying thing in my heart and my soul that kept saying to me, Faizun, we want to be able to live life on our terms.
Mm.
So if you think about it for a moment, Diane, isn't that really what every single one of us are trying to do in whatever industry, whatever field we may be in, whether we have a job or whether we have a business? Whatever it is that we are doing it because we want to be able to live life on our own terms. And my terms are going to be very different from yours.
Right.
Yours are going to be very different from somebody else's. But that is essentially what we are doing. And why franchising, Diane? Coming to this country um, in my late teens, going to college and then taking sort of that path, going to grad school, getting into the workforce. As an immigrant, I have always been fascinated by people who have had agency over their own lives, having that ability to do what you want to do, using the talents that only you have, that you brought into this world with you, and to then use that to be able to serve whoever you serve. With franchising, for the first time in my life, I found something that was not some scammy shimsham thing. It wasn't a multi-level marketing. It wasn't, go sell pots and pans to friends and family until you run out of friends and family. It was none of that crazy stuff. But the first time I said, whoa, 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 you mean to tell me that there's really a way that someone can invest in a business where the playbook is given for them, where if they follow that playbook, they're actually going to be able to create incredible returns that they might not otherwise? This feels a little too good to be true. And so when I started in this industry, Diane, I did the due diligence that we now tell every single client to do when they come to us. I did that due diligence because I couldn't quite believe it.
Mm.
So I give you a bit of a long-winded answer to say, being able to live life on my terms has defined my life. And now, in the work that we do with clients every day around the country, in fact, around the world, because we work outside of the United States, this is what we help our clients do every single day.
That sounds really interesting because basically what you're doing is helping them find that freedom, right?
Yeah.
The freedom
Yeah.
to live life on their own terms. Maybe they have a successful company and they want to share that. So in the heart of being philanthropic to a degree and helping other people also rise up and have an opportunity, basically what you're doing is creating not only an opportunity for the entrepreneur that you're helping with the franchise, but everybody else that they're going to bring into the organization. That's a
Absolutely.
huge vision. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, indeed. It's what you know, when people ask the question, Faizun, do you sell franchises? And I laugh and I say, no. One, I legally cannot sell franchises because I don't have a license to sell. What we offer is a completely different set of services. But what we do isn't really the vehicle is franchising, yes, Diane. But we create legacies, one franchise at a time. That is in the business that we are in, right? Helping you take something that you have built up over the years, and that becomes the legacy that you leave behind in the world.
That is awesome. So, can you describe for us what a perfect company, or at least close to perfect, there's no perfect company probably, would look like that would be a good candidate
Mm.
for a franchise?
I love that. So, a business that would be good to turn into a franchise is what you're asking. Okay.
Correct.
The first, um, this is probably the biggest question we get asked every week, Diane. I would say, my friend, there's quite a few things because franchising is complex and complicated.
Mhm.
But at a very sort of simplistic high level, I would say there's really two things that we are looking for when you first come to us. So the first question we're going to ask you as the business owner is, Diane, is your business, as it currently stands today, right now, is it profitable? We ask that question, Diane, because we want to understand, do you have a business model that is more than a proof of concept, that you have run for at least 2 years, if not more? And in this time period, you have shown consistent profitability. So it shouldn't be where you say, well, Faizun, this year we had a huge month in March, but the other months we kind of sort of made it. No, consistent profitability month over month, right? So that's number one. The second thing that we look for, Diane, is whether you're a business that provides a product or a business that provides a service, the way in which you provide the product or service, can that be replicated?
Right.
Can that be reproduced anywhere in the contiguous United States if you want a national brand?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a process that is too complex, that is too complicated. So if you were a brain surgeon and you came to me and you said, Faizun, can I franchise?
Yeah.
All I need to know is that you're a brain surgeon. And I would probably say to you, Diane, no, I don't think you can.
Right.
Has to be easy, has to be replicable. Yeah.
Right.
So those would be the two things.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So when I work with a company, a client on planning their eventual exit,
Mm.
I do is I look at what I call the 3 Ps: processes, people, and profits.
Oof. Yes.
So if they get their processes in order, which might mean automating some things, consolidating some things, getting that company humming along very smoothly, then they can take a look at their people and make sure they have the right people in the right places. And if they don't, maybe they need to let people go or bring new people in or reallocate different job assignments to get that portion working. Then they can start driving profits. So if they haven't got those first 2 things done, they're probably not going to be as profitable as they want to be or could be. Number one. Number two, one of the errors, and I've talked to a lot of accountants about this and CFOs, one of the biggest errors an entrepreneur does is put too many of their personal expenses into the business, which doesn't show as much of a profit because they don't want to pay it in taxes. And
Exactly.
we all get that, right? But if you're going to do what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, you've got to start showing some profits. And I have this conversation all the time with business owners. So those 2 things, the processes and the people, have to be in place before they can start driving those profits.
I love how you said that, Diane. And in fact, my friend, I would say to you, our process is almost identical.
Mm,
Because how are you even going to get to profitability if you don't have a stable foundation that you've built first?
yep.
The profit is it's almost it's a lagging indicator.
Mm-hmm.
It comes at the end because you have put some things on the front. If you didn't have those inputs, the profit would not happen on the back end, right? So I love how you said that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a big mistake that they make. So we're all familiar with the big franchises.
Yes.
Okay, and we hear stories about how many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars you have to pay to buy an existing franchise, like a McDonald's. That's not a good example in my estimation, but it's an example that everybody understands. So, in that picture, how would a business owner who maybe has those things set up and is showing the profitability and you've kind of put them through your due diligence, how would they go about that, and what kind of costs are they looking at? And I know that's probably a broad question, but just to give the people a little bit of an idea of what they're talking about.
So are you asking, Diane, how much does somebody need to buy into an existing franchise brand?
I'm asking more how much it would cost the business owner, because I'm sure there's a cost involved,
Yes.
to even look at getting franchised and then
Got it.
actually setting that up.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's dispel a myth, one of the
Okay.
biggest myths in
Okay,
franchising.
good. Let's bust the myth.
Let's bust the myths. Uh, do you know how many times I've heard somebody say to me, well, Faizun, I've thought about franchising. I have a great business, but I mean, I know that franchising is only about burgers and fries, right? And I say, oh my God, the work still remains to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely not, right? So you use McDonald's and it's a great example,
Yeah.
but by no means is it the only, because currently we have in our inventory over 650 franchise brands that we partner with.
Wow.
Not every single one of them is food, my friend. So you can imagine the
Right.
diverse plethora. Now, for a business owner who's looking to turn their business into a franchise, high level, I'll give you a couple of things that they can wrap their minds around.
Mhm.
When we bring a client on board, and before we bring you on board, there's quite a bit of due diligence that we do on our end. Franchising is long, it is complex, it is costly. Franchising is also not something you should get into if you're thinking, I'm going to franchise my business, I will make $1 bajillion in 1 year, and boom, then I'm out.
Oh,
I can guarantee you it almost certainly will not happen that way. But do you stand to have potentially a very large payday sometime in the future if you've done what you need to do correctly?
mhm.
I will tell you the probability is quite high because we have done this for many clients and we see this happen across the industry. So in terms of high levels, we take our clients through a 5-month process, Diane. 5 months. So from soup to nuts, over the 5 months, my friend, think of it as 5 large buckets of deliverables that we give to our client. It begins with first really identifying and structuring what does Diane's business in its most optimized franchise form look like. So this is where we start to wrap the model around what does a royalty look like? What kind of franchise fee are we going to charge? So you are in this particular industry, and within your industry, this is the niche that you are in. We do what's called a competitive benchmarking, where we stand your business up against competitors in your space, both franchised and non-franchised, to be able to say, what does your optimized model look like? We then move into your operations. So you mentioned processes as one of the P's you talk about. Okay, what do your SOPs look like? Do you have some? Do you have a few? Do you have none at all? I will tell you, we almost never bring on a client who does not have any SOPs because you are not ready yet.
Correct.
So SOPs, systems and processes. What we do then is we essentially come out to you, where our team will shadow you, where we want to understand, how does Diane do what she does? What are her best practices? What is that secret magic sauce that makes her clients keep going back to her over and over again? Why do we want to know all that stuff? Because when we do, Diane, we take all that information we've learned and we then start to build out what is going to become your operations manual for the franchise. This is the playbook that I referred to earlier,
Yeah.
right?
And even if they have some processes in place, how many times do they have that really documented? I mean, to the extent that you're going to need that and they're going to need that going forward. And that's another thing we work with the clients on too, is make sure they start documenting everything.
Documenting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, again, think of it this way too. You are essentially bringing in a complete stranger who does not know your business as your franchisee, and they're going to come in and they're going to run your business.
Mhm.
Don't you think you have to lay every single system and process out for them so they know what to do, right?
Mhm.
So that's the sort of second bucket. The third bucket of work that we do for you is the work around the legal piece. So when you become a franchise, Diane, franchising is a highly regulated industry, much like the financial industry.
Sure.
And what the Federal Trade Commission, who's sort of our regulatory body, they say to us, if you are going to operate and sell yourself as a franchise in the contiguous United States, we need for you to have in place a couple of things. And those couple of things include what's called a franchise disclosure document, your franchise agreement, which is the contract that governs your relationship with everyone in your system, and last but not least, what we refer to as your state registration. So when you become a franchise, as you move forward, these are 3 key pieces you need before you can even say, I'm a franchise, and you open your doors for business, right?
Right.
We put all of that documentation together for you. Bucket number 3, I guess. Bucket number 4, marketing. Marketing is the lifeblood of any business, certainly even more so when you become a franchise. So what does your go-to-market strategy look like when you become a franchise, not as you stand right now? Number 2, we will build out a completely new section to our client's existing website that starts to talk about the business as a national franchised offering. We do this typically, so remember I said it's a 5-month process. We do the marketing piece around month 3. And the reason we do it then is because we want to start to generate leads for you, the client, as soon as we possibly can. Have people who raise their hands and say, whoa, Diane, You're going to be a franchise? I'd be interested to chat with you, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of work that goes around marketing. In addition, once the client completes their work with us, for the next 2.5 years, Diane, for a total of 3 years, we advertise your brand on the several dozen franchise-focused websites that we own,
Mhm.
where we get a lot of eyeballs coming in daily. And so when somebody reaches out on these websites and says, I'd like to get some more information on Diane's business, that is a lead that is then sent to you, the client, right? And then last but not least, bucket number 4, this is where we will do all of the strategic introductions that you will need to vendors, to partners, to different organizations based on the industry and the niche that you are in that you need to have in place before you are able to launch, right? And this last piece, think of it as being baked into every single of the first 4 steps that I just mentioned to you. So, all in all, franchise development takes roughly 4 to 5 months. I say 5 months just to allow myself and our team a little bit of grace from you, right? So, I'll say 5 months. Um, the development fee varies, and the development fee varies on the level of development that you already have when you come to us. Again, that's a piece that we delve into on a case by case once a client comes to us and shares with us. And this is part of that initial due diligence I mentioned to you, right? Understanding what kind of structure do you have in place? Do you have some foundation? What kind of revenue income are you bringing into the company, right? So, based on a number of different things that we will review with them, will then determine what that fee is going to look like. Now, that said, this isn't very helpful to give you a general answer, but I can't delve down more specifically than that, but I'll give you this. For someone looking to franchise their business, Diane, they should think of kit and caboodle, have some money, have a little bit of a cash cushion to the side as they get started. $100,000 is a nice amount. I would say have that, have access to that before you even start thinking about franchising. That would be a good number to keep at the back of their heads.
Great. Well, one thing that you said is also something that I use in the exit planning, that's benchmarking, right? We
I
take
love
a
it.
company and we compare that industry and how that company is running against their competition, because that's going to help us determine a value for that company. And to your other point, what is their unique selling proposition?
Ooh,
Right? What sets them apart from their competition that's going to give us a higher factor when taking the valuation? So let's just use round number. The valuation is $10 million, right? And they have something unique like intellectual property or a patent or something like this in their processes that will take that factor and not only double it, but sometimes 10 times it.
sometimes it.
And this is something that's hard for the business owner to get their head around. It's like, well, I should be able to sell my business for X number of dollars, right? And you go, well, here's the problem. You have this out of order, or this isn't in place, or your SOPs aren't clear. So that all detracts from the value of the business, which I assume is also an important component for you in putting it out there for a franchise.
I love that you said that, Diane, because here's what happens, my friend. In addition to the 2 pieces you mentioned, let me add 2 more. So when you take this business and now it has become a franchise, a couple of things start to happen. When you're a franchise brand, it is assumed that the buck does not begin and end with Diane. If Diane or Faizun should get hit by a bus tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
the business continues. It is not dependent on them. Huge, 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 huge in terms of that valuation.
Yeah.
The second piece that many business owners don't think about because this is not their world, when you start to bring franchisees into your system, Diane, in essence, every franchisee in your system every month gives you a royalty. It's a percentage of sales.
Mm-hmm.
That royalty is nothing more than a recurring annuity.
Right.
When you have 25, 50, 75, 100 franchisees across your system paying you X dollars every single month, and all of them have signed a 10-year contract with you, my friend, your value just skyrocketed. So these two things are incredible in terms of enhancing the value proposition of that brand and then ultimately exponentially increasing that exit value if that is what they want to do. You
Yeah.
know, franchising, Diane, over the last, I would say 10, 15 years, the amount of activity that we have seen with private equity, their interest in franchising has been incredible
Yeah.
because of the reasons that we just talked about.
Yep, exactly. And I work with a lot of people in that space. And
Yes.
boy, that does, it becomes like an annuity that's just going to come in if things are set up properly, marketed properly, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So let me just look at some of the other questions that we had here.
And
Um,
then, let me just mention one other thing, my friend, because I think this is um, when we talk about franchising or really any industry, we tend to talk about the really well-known superstars, right? You mentioned McDonald's.
mhm,
I want to say this. For somebody who's sitting here listening to our conversation, they should not feel discouraged and say, oh my gosh, Faizun just mentioned 50 locations, 100 locations. Wow. I don't know that I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I want to go that big, or I don't think I'm going to be able to do that.
mhm,
Here's the thing. We have seen incredible valuations on businesses when they sold. They had 10 locations or 10 franchisees. They had
right.
20 franchisees. So someone should not immediately think, if I can't get to that level of growth, this is not the path for me. Not true at all. I
Right.
just wanted to make a point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I think one of the things that comes to mind, and you may have heard her talk as well, is Ellen, who started Orange Theory,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And
Mhm.
started in her garage. Kind of to your same point, she got fired or laid off, okay? And then all of a sudden she's on her own in the fitness realm. And look at Orange Theory now, right? So, a lot of great ideas that you have or that you're passionate about can be turned into not only a viable business, but something that is viable for a franchise down the road. I had a friend up in Mesa, Arizona, who had a great breakfast restaurant. And I always talked to him. I said, Tom, you need to franchise. He's like, no, 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 no. Well, 35 years later, he's still at the same location and he's happy. But I just saw an opportunity for him to take a great, unique type of situation. And he had unique recipes, unique menu, all that could have been franchisable. So he may have missed the boat, but he's happy. So, I can't knock that. And he's still in business, which is even better.
I guess the happiness piece is also a part of living life on your terms.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
right?
true.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
his place and that's his space. Yeah,
Yeah. But a lot of people can't wrap their head around that. To your point, I don't
absolutely.
want to get that big. Well, how big do you want to get? Do you want 20 franchisees? If you have something that you're passionate about, and again, you have something that you want other people to have that same opportunity because you've had that opportunity, then maybe that's something that you want to consider. So how would somebody contact you and get more information, Faizun? And I'll
Oh
put
God,
that all down on the list, but I'm sure you're available in a lot of different venues.
absolutely. They can check out our website, thefranchisepros.net. Um, Send an email to info@thefranchisepros.net.
Okay.
I have been told that I'm apparently the only person on LinkedIn with my name. So I'm pretty findable. I live on LinkedIn, as you know.
Yep.
So folks can reach out in a number of different ways. And we will absolutely reach out, either myself or someone on the team will reach out, schedule for us for a discovery call, and we'll get them started. Again, I think the first step is, and that's why I made the point about you can decide you're going to grow to 10 franchisees and call it a day.
Right.
You don't have to be the McDonald's. You don't
Right.
have to be the next Orange Theory
Mhm.
unless you wanted to. So
Right.
again, there's a growth path based on what it is you feel is the right path for you. And we've done this. We've done this so many times with different kinds of clients who wanted to go big or they wanted to stay at a certain size.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, this is your baby,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question. You mentioned that they should have some cash reserves, obviously, set aside to get the process going, 100,000 being a good starting point. Is there a typical size of company or minimum size of a company that you would want to work with as far as what their current revenue is?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Rule of thumb, I would say, and again, it varies a little bit, but I would say if you're a business that is bringing in top line roughly 1.5 to 2 million, you have 2 to 3, maybe a little more employees or contractors, you're at a good point to start
Okay,
thinking about this.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
regardless of whatever industry you might be in. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Faizun, thank you again for joining us today. And I love hearing what you're doing. And I know your passion because I follow you all the time on LinkedIn and everywhere else. So I'm sure that there will be some questions from people in the audience who can get in touch with you. Again, we'll put all your contact information on the video. But thank you again for making this possible, finally connecting. I've had to chase this woman down for a few months here because she's so busy. So again, I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you
Thank you,
very
my friend.
much.
I appreciate you.
Thank
Thank you. Bye now.
you.